Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/INTB and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/INTB.
Honestly, they're not that bad.
Welcome to an episode of It's Not That Bad Podcast. I am Fern here with Dom.
Hey there.
So, as you guys know,
Do they?
this week, not only is it our 100th episode, but it's also the week of Thanksgiving. The most beautiful time of year that is all about love and caring for each other, and it's based off of two completely different people coming together and realizing, like, hey, we're part of this country now, and you're my neighbor, and we love each other.
And they all shared, and they were all happy. And
The end. Now, a couple of things. For those who don't know, I am of indigenous descent, and obviously it's not the best time of year. But I learned. Remember, we had this conversation about like reservations and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually learned. I don't know if I can't pinpoint if they started it this year, or if it's something that I've been trying to start, or if it just happened or whatever. But I found out that the schools out here on the reservation, they are trying to teach like the language still.
Oh.
They're making it like every like high school student has to take it and stuff like that.
Well, that's good.
That's pretty cool. But that also led to a lot of conversations between Native Americans and people not from America and or native to it. And it's talking about the celebration of Thanksgiving. And I totally understand why it is a day of mourning, but it's also I think like for us at least, we're removed from the idea of Thanksgiving. Now it's a time of just celebration.
Yeah.
It's a literal day of feast. It's kind of like how the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
How it is, like, the idea of it actually seems very somber, but it's not. It's a celebration of life. Just people, who aren't with us anymore.
Yeah, because unlike America, for some reason, most other nations celebrate their dead instead of, we gotta be all nice, mourn, and stuff.
And so I think like that's how. I'm not going to speak for everybody because we're all different, but at least like I think that's how we see it, is that it's more of a celebration of like Native American life. How even though
You turn it around.
Yeah, even though like this day is celebrated as like this false narrative and like that was just like a cover up from like what was really happening, what continued to happen, and what still does happen. It's more of like, fuck the white people, whatever, blah blah blah. This is our day of living. This is our celebration of life.
Yeah, take that.
But some people still, don't celebrate it. But I did talk to someone who's very, very negative about it, and I was like, but here's the thing: is you speak about different tribes having different views and different values and perceiving things different. How people in the Rocky Mountains are going to be different than the tribes from out here, and so things that they do out there that's you don't like but you understand that's their way of life is different from you because you can you could sustain your life differently and all this stuff, right? And she was like, but that's a whole day of like, or it's a national holiday which is built on like the bodies of Native Americans and stuff. And I was like, true, but what I'm saying is like we're not forgetting that. We're not saying like, oh, we're gonna celebrate to give praise to our white saviors. Yay. It's not that. It's just it's being able to say, like, to never forget, who we are. Yes, it is a shitty thing that happened.
Yeah, I'm so glad all these white people came and moved us all the way out here.
But it's like, just because we get together and we feast doesn't mean that we're giving. It's almost like when people who don't celebrate Christmas, on Christmas, they still have traditions. Mm-hmm. They'd be like, oh yeah, we make our own food, or blah blah blah,
or even Christmas itself has changed from being like, oh, it was such a like Christian holiday, to being it's its own entity of a thing. It's less about Jesus
you don't have to be. It's not like Hanukkah, where it is very faith based.
Yeah,
it is just a day of like celebration.
Yeah.
It's a day where people, even if you're not Christian or whatever, you can still celebrate it, because it's like, oh, it's a day where everyone gets together and gives presents. It's Presents Day.
Yeah,
they should change it to Presents Day.
Well, that's why don't they have Boxing Day and
in like Australia,
where they just box each other.
Like, all right, kangaroo, you want a box?
It's not a box; it's a knife.
No, but it was just like, it was an interesting conversation to have. And like, I respect her, and I get it. She's been through shit and stuff like that. And it's like, because she's very like all indigenous all the time, and she always talks about like white saviors, how she hates white saviors, because a lot of times it's like, oh, they preach this one thing, but then they still do this and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're just doing that, but you're justifying it because you're like, well, I'm native. That it'd be like if I'm doing something, I'm like, well, I do this, so all natives should do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you're literally doing, like, it's like a Eurocentric idea where, okay, well,
isn't that
this. So then everyone has to follow my idea.
Isn't that the thing we're supposed to be fighting against? Is this idea that just because you, culturally speaking, do it, that means a generalization?
Yeah, because like we talked not that long ago, is like every reservation is different.
Yeah,
and so the way that people cultivate their land, the way that people move in and out of land, like there's even people who are they're tribes, but they're not federal recognized tribes and stuff like that. Does that mean that they have to follow suit to it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, I totally understand, I totally get it, and I don't know, that this country's fucked up, and in a day where people just want to, because all it really is people just want to fucking eat. I don't think people even care about fucking
happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. I think most people just care about food. People don't care about the fucking whatever, and that on itself, that's a whole other thing. But it's just interesting, especially because like we have little ones, and like that's something that I always try to teach my sister and my nephews and stuff. And it's like, just don't forget it. Like, know what you're celebrating, and like trying to get my nephew away from his dad for Thanksgiving, because it's like, why are you gonna be with your fucking dad? Your dad's a loser. But whatever. We talk too much about the white devils and what they do to us people of color. So let's move out to something that we are okay with the white devils doing, and that is movies and entertainment.
This is the fucking news.
All right, so after you do Bohemian Rhapsody, right, and you move on to Rocket Man, which is the story of Freddie Mercury, and you move on to the story of Elton John, where are you going to go next, huh? You tell me, where are you going to go next?
Kiss.
Michael Jackson. That's right. The producer of Bohemian Rhapsody is going to be making a biopic of Michael Jackson, and it won't be sanitized. That's what he said. It ain't gonna be no sanitizing on here. And I was thinking, sure, yeah, right. Their estate's not gonna let you make a movie of him without like sanitizing something. Like they're gonna talk about how no, he didn't bleach himself. That was natural. He naturally aged like that. So Graham King, the producer, he 100%, I guess, secured the rights from the family's estate. It's going to span his entire life, I guess. So they're going to show how his dad was super abusive.
Yeah, I bet it's going to do something where it's like they talk about him being so kind to the kids, but they don't talk about like or show like him, having kids over or hanging out with the kids or spending alone time with the kids, because he didn't do anything to those kids. Yes, it is very creepy. Yes, when you look at it, it's very wrong that he did this stuff. Yeah, he probably shouldn't have been able to just take kids and be alone with them at any time of day. Yes, yeah, but he didn't touch those kids. No. He just loved those kids.
Yeah.
But not like, not like love those kids. This isn't going to be in the movie, right? Honestly, though, that's what I feel like, because I didn't get to see Rocket Man, but I was gonna wait for it just to get released.
It's pretty good.
I tried to watch I really did try to watch Bohemian Rhapsody.
I think you'd like Rocket Man at least just for it being not Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. But because Bohemian Rhapsody was literally like, this is just like if someone was like, hey, yeah, so like I kind of know about Queen, and then they made a movie. Instead of like actually researching it, getting those interviews, trying to be like, oh, let's recreate this day and whatever. It was more of like someone read like a long article in Rolling Stone about Queen, and then they made a movie, because it just felt so sterilized. It felt so fake.
I mean, I came in at the end and I honestly thought it was like someone just making like a joke.
Yeah, because then it ends with like 15, 20 minutes of music.
And that's it. It's just the Live Aid thing, which it's like, but he had a life after that.
And that's honestly where I feel like they would do with Michael Jackson, because he's had that problematic view now, right?
Well, yeah. So they bring up that the documentary Leaving Neverland and like everything about that. So hopefully myself, I would want a movie that shows like this is the disgusting, horrible person that he actually was. But then I feel like a bunch of, like my mom, she's going to be mad because she's like, well, that's not really Michael Jackson. It's like, that's exactly how he was. And it's like, no, because he didn't touch those kids. It's like, yes, he did. Yeah, look at how many people have, like, I was arguing with Junior about that, and he's like, oh, well, it never was, in court, it never was proven, and he was never convicted. It's like, just because you weren't convicted for something doesn't mean that you didn't do it.
Imagine if Bill Cosby were to die 10 years ago, and then this stuff got brought up. They would have that same conversation. Oh, yeah, those girls did try to go to court, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, now after he's dead, then they come out and start talking about it.
Yeah.
It would be that same
conversation. And I tried to explain to him, it's like, people with power, you can't, like, fight against. And he's like, well, yeah, you can. You always can do that. It's like, no, you can't. Like, just because you think, like, in your head, like, oh, well, if it happened to me, I could fight it, because everyone's the main character of their own story. That's not how the real world works. Look at those people who... Look at Michael Jackson himself. Look at the parents literally took him to court. Everyone sided with Michael Jackson because they're like, well, he's the king of pop. He couldn't have done that.
Yeah. We live in a weird, fucked up future where we know pedophile rings exist. Mm-hmm. And we know that a lot of times people chop it up to conspiracy. And sometimes it is partially conspiracy. But look at the stuff that happened in England. Mm-hmm. Look at the stuff that stuff that happens here. Look at like some of the stuff that does get brought up that is on the verge of conspiracy, like this stuff, but still has very much real ties and reality, things that you can actually physically go back to and say, so you're saying that this little boy didn't get on a private jet with Michael Jackson and then stay with him for a week? that would be interesting to see if they actually touch on some of this stuff, because I do understand how you don't want to make. I mean, well, actually, you know what? No, they could, because look at what they did with Bohemian Rhapsody. It's made up shit.
Yeah.
So why couldn't they show, hey, look what we have. I mean, I know Michael Jackson here to say that he didn't, but here are these boys who were in this situation, and let's just show them what we think, or let's show them what they tell us happened.
Yeah.
That would actually be kind of scary, but interesting. It would be interesting to see the casting, and it's one of those, I think it's going to be one of those movies that I'm not going to see it until it comes on cable or something. But if someone's like, "Yo, fuck, you gotta see it," I might be like, "Okay, let's go see it."
Okay. So Netflix just bought a major theater. They purchased the Paris Theater in New York City. A lot of people were saying that they were raising questions of whether Netflix will keep buying more theaters, or whether or not this is just going to be like a one-time thing.
Didn't Netflix buy one in LA?
Back in April, they were in talks. They were in talks to take over and preserve the historic Egyptian theater, but I guess that didn't go through. So I guess this is the real theater that they've purchased, and it's Netflix now. Is this the same thing as what we talked about last week about them wanting to change the laws, right? Of studios wanting to own theaters. Would Netflix be considered a studio, and would that be breaking the law anyways, or would that not be, because they're technically a streaming service, quote unquote? Because that's where a lot of like Uber gets away with certain laws, because they're like, well, we're not a cab company.
Yeah.
We're a tech company, because it's just run on an app. And it's like, yeah, but these people are in physical cars. So it's like,
yeah, but that's because that's what people want to do. They want to share the vehicles.
So do they say that they're a tech company that's just buying a theater, but they still produce movies?
It is interesting though, because this is like the week after we talked about this, and I mean, where does that line get crossed, if at all? Because you're right, them still owning a movie theater, it could be, like I said, this all could be a novelty of some sort.
Yeah.
Right, where they do the Irishman's coming out, let's do this big New York premiere, and blah, blah, blah. That could be something, that they're testing the waters with, or who knows. It's something that we thought about them doing, and thought it would be kind of cool, to own a movie theater that you can show your film on, like, the big screen. But maybe this is like them trying to figure if they could streamline it, because Netflix has done, and Amazon's done it too, and who knows who's next, but they do put their movies in theaters, even if it's for a limited release. I know Bryson saw The Irishman in a movie theater.
So it looks like Netflix also has been considering buying a small theater chain, such as Landmark Theaters, which was one of the companies through which Netflix has previously booked qualifying theatrical runs of its top-tier movies. I mean, I guess it's not a out of the question type of thing where, like, are they? It's just a matter of when are we going to get Netflix movie theaters?
But
right?
Yeah, but see, it is interesting, because us having that conversation last week, it does bring up the question of, is this something they can get away with?
Yeah.
Like, you're right. Where do they stand on being a TV app and then a movie studio?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're not Disney, where they have decades and decades and decades.
And they have a physical studio lot.
Yeah, and they can do all this shit and blah, 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 whatever, right? And then they just happen to release an app, right? It's not like that. It's not like a WB doing that, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's something that started very much online as one thing. Well, not even online at first, but it started very much as one thing, and then just progression led them to another, where
and
now...
necessity to evolve into a production company.
Yeah. And does that mean that because they can produce movies and they own a building, does that mean that's considered a movie studio?
I mean, does it even matter if they overturn the Paramount clause?
That's true.
I mean, because then at that point, do we have to sit down and do we need true laws in place stating that to separate this? But see, then it's then where do you draw the line too? It's if you're a tech company, can you not own theaters? And it's can you not own it's if Uber bought a local cab company, right? Can they not do that? Or because they're technically one different, they call themselves something different. So legally, but but you are this.
That's really, I don't know. It's really intriguing to see this actually coming to, because we talked about it and we talked about it before any of this other stuff happened. We talked about it because of this other stuff happening, and now knowing that they're going forward with it. Yeah, we knew Amazon was doing this. Now Netflix is doing it. It is interesting because they are producing high quality movies now, where it doesn't seem so ridiculous anymore that The Irishman can be nominated for a Best Picture. The Irishman, the one that you can go on Netflix right now and watch and all this stuff. Ooh. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's... Yeah. So, I don't know. It's cool because, like we said, there is a point in time where Amazon exclusive movie or a Netflix original sounded so stupid.
Yeah.
And then they started winning awards, and it's huh.
And then I feel this kind of line and chain of events kind of leads to, and this is where I get upset. This is why I get upset with people who are more conservative and libertarian, because they have the optimism of, but see, just because we take away the regulation doesn't mean that the business is going to do it. It's no, that's exactly what they do. They see Netflix and Amazon buying up theaters. Next thing you know, Disney's going to say, we're never going to do, if they overturn this clause, right? Disney could say, we're never going to do that, huh? And then next thing you know, they quietly acquire AMC, right? Through something, and then it's you're gonna get a Disney experience to see the movie. It's
yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, right now it's very interesting the fact that it's actually going through. Yeah. But we are in the very beginning of all of this. I felt like we just talked about Amazon maybe doing something like this, and Netflix, whatever. And now this is actually going forward. So I don't know. I guess we'll just see.
Dusty, I want you to meet Benjamin. Well, I noticed you didn't have any friends, so I signed you up for the Guardian Angel program at church.
Your mom's smoking hot. I play my cards right. Maybe someday I'll be your real guardian.
Good morning, homeschoolers. You're really gonna enjoy the best writers' camp in the state.
I'd like to introduce you to one of the greatest science fiction authors of our time, Ronald Chevalier.
I'm assuming you love to write fantasy fiction. Except the character names in your stories are suffering. Need thou not be afraid? We can add Onius, Ainus, or Anus to just about anything, and it becomes magical.
So when are you gonna let me read one of your stories?
I've let my mom read a few, but they've just made her cry. You can read this. Bronco and Vinaya began their assault on the East Factory.
Bronco.
I am your soldier.
I'll cut to the chase. Unless you can give us something worth taking to print, we're just gonna have to let you go.
Bronco. I can do better. Broncanus. Forgive me. Cyclops there.
Cyclops there. Cyclops there. Turrets.
Oh my holy crap. Surveillance does.
I hate those.
It's fantastic. And I've ordered your proofs for print.
Oh my gosh, is that the new Chevalier book?
You stole my story. Awesome. All you did was change the character names and turn Bronco into a tranny.
This is ridiculous.
Cookie! How about you come down here and fight me like a man?
Seize him. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's plagiarism. I'm completely distressed. I can't even concentrate on my audiobook narration.
Gentlemen Broncos.
Gentlemen Broncos is a 2009 American comedy film written by Jared and Jerusha Hess and directed by Jared Hess. Benjamin Purvis lives with his mother, Judith, who designs tacky clothes and makes rock-hard popcorn balls. Judith and Benjamin make ends meet by working at a women's retail clothing store. Benjamin spends his spare time writing science fiction stories, and he has recently completed a story called Yeast Lords, which is centered on a hero named Bronco, modeled after his long-dead father. At various times, portions of Yeast Lords are seen as Benjamin imagines them. Bronco is obliquely masculine, and he valiantly struggles with the villain over yeast production. At a 2-day writing camp for aspiring fantasy and science fiction authors, Benjamin attends lectures by his idol, the prolific and pretentious writer Ronald Chevalier. Chevalier announces a contest for the writers in which the winner's story will be published nationally. After encouragement from fellow camper Tabitha, Benjamin submits Yeast Lords. Tabitha shows the story to her friend Lonnie Donahoe, who runs an ultra-low-budget video production company. Lonnie gives Benjamin a post-dated check for $500 and begins adapting Yeast Lords into a film. As Chevalier reviews the stories from the campers, he gets a call from his publisher rejecting his latest manuscript. Panicked, he picks up Benjamin's story, and it sparks his imagination. Chevalier changes Purvis's Bronco into Brutus, an extremely effeminate and comically flamboyant hero. Changes the other characters' names and title, but otherwise leaves the story intact. His publisher loves it, and the novel is rushed into production under the title Brutus and Balzac. Portions of Chevalier's version are now seen playing out alongside Benjamin's original version of the story. At the local premiere of Donahoe's version of Yeast Lords, Benjamin is nauseated to see how badly Donahoe has adapted his work, and he abruptly leaves the film with Tabitha. They go to a bookstore where he discovers Chevalier's plagiarism after reading a paragraph from Brutus and Balzac. He confronts Chevalier at the local book signing and assaults him with some merchandise Chevalier has offered him in exchange for keeping his theft quiet. 2 policemen hustle him out of the store, and he is placed in jail. Judith comes to visit her son in jail to give him his birthday present. She hands him a box of manuscripts, all officially bound by the Writers Guild of America. She explains that she has been registering all his stories with them since he was 7 years old, thinking they would make a nice keepsake for his children. Yeast Lords is one of the registered stories. Copy of Chevalier's novel are unceremoniously dumped from store shelves and replaced with Benjamin's original novel.
Gentlemen Broncos. No, wait. I could do better. Gentlemen Broncanus.
Oh, God.
A movie that we have loved for a decade now.
I couldn't even believe it when I was like 2009. Are you serious?
Yeah. It's a movie another Jared Hess flick.
Mm-hmm.
I know we watched it, right? The first time together.
Yeah. Because I think, did Tyler rent it?
Maybe. I know. I think we watched it twice here. I watched it with my mom once.
Really?
So, I've watched this movie many a times. But enough of me, Dom. Let me know what you think of this awesome classic.
I'm so glad we can call it a classic now because it's been a decade. Yeah, when we first saw this movie, it blew our minds because of how not only ridiculous it is, but this type of humor is like the type of humor that like we shared, and like that kind of like got us to like be friends. I mean, we like look at us now, we still reference this movie to this day, like just things that they say, and just rewatching it again too, just like there's things that I noticed too, like when he's walking and he smacks that girl in the face with the bag. Like there's things that like you don't even notice and like you're laughing so hard at, and it just like kind of is upsetting that this film isn't tore apart like through like every other like reviews and all that. And it's like I don't understand why, because it's still the same type of humor that like Napoleon Dynamite has. Although I think it's better than Napoleon Dynamite.
It's more refined.
Yeah. And like it's also got like that like Nacho Libre type of humor too. Like I just don't understand why, like, if people like those films, why they don't like. It's like when people with like Adam Sandler's films, I think, where they like certain ones, like, but then they're like, oh, I don't like that one. It's like, yeah, they might not be as good, but they're still pretty funny. I love this movie. It's so hilarious that like I was laughing so hard because this movie just makes me laugh so hard. Like I just love that Sam Rockwell he plays Bronco in the like Imaginations, like, and not only does he do it like the one time, he does it multiple times in different character, because Benjamin, he like pictures him as this like ultra like rugged like outdoorsman. and then Chevalier or Jermaine Clement, he pictures him as such a effeminate like guy who's just like, give me the binoculars. He's like, there's Cyclops, there's a Cyclops, there's a turret. But I love that, like,
oh no, surveillance deer.
I just love that this man has won an Oscar.
Yeah. I honestly though, I think the weird part about people not really watching this, reviewing it, liking it, whatever, I think it's weird because when you break it down, I would say that this is his best film. Because Napoleon Dynamite was very much like a 1 out of 100 thing. It wasn't supposed to get that big. But people loved it, and I think that carried on to stuff like Nacho Libre and this, where it was more refined. And this is very much like, this honestly feels like, well, what if I did something like a Nacho Libre, but now I have actual skills? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you're right. It's like similar type of humor because he has that type of humor. It's shot very similarly. Like it, it has that same like, what year is this?
Yeah.
Where is this? Where is this at?
And I love that like whole vibe because it works so well for the story.
But it's easy, and then also his later films, which I still like. He still has that like type of humor, but it's matured.
Yeah, like Masterminds.
Yeah, differently, but it's still there. It still has his like flavor into it. But like this movie is the gold standard for his movies, and not only that, you're right. You watch this movie, and this movie was like hilarious in 2009. This movie is like a blueprint for comedy in 2019.
Yeah.
There's things that my nephews will watch that they have this type of humor. And And it's so funny because it's like, well, yeah, because of like Napoleon Dynamite, blah, blah, blah. It's like, exactly, because he went and refined it to be this. This is like, I think I brought it up here before, but it's kind of like there's certain bands that exist that never break as big as other bands. Like your favorite band, it's your favorite band's favorite band. There's those bands that never get the recognition. They never hit the popularity as other bands, but they were at the same time, they were doing those things before those other bands. This is like that.
Yeah.
This is like your favorite movie's favorite movie.
Yeah.
It's so fucking funny. And the one thing that, yeah, you're right. We watch it and we always laugh. And I've honestly seen this movie, like, it has to be a few dozen times by now. Because I would watch it every time it would come on cable. I'd watch it when it would come up on streaming. I'm surprised I don't own it.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, right?
But yeah, I mean, even when it came out, I'm pretty sure I watched it about a dozen times or so. Because like I said, I watched it with my mom, which I'll get back to later. But even with all those viewings, sitting down, watching now, you pick up on little things that maybe you forgot, or maybe you didn't even understand, or maybe you just, at the time, you didn't even pay attention to. It's all the actors in this, and I'm talking about all of them, from the main actors to the side characters to the little guests, like background characters. Yes. They all do this thing where it's like they buy into this world of gentlemen. Like when you're talking to the girl and she's like, she bites her lip, like that little thing didn't need to be there, but it was there. And that little thing makes that whole scene so much more fucking funny. That little bite from that one girl for 5 seconds? Fucking hilarious. Or the teacher, like when he's introducing the girl, and then he's like, and then he leaves. It's like I didn't even pay attention to that before, but that little thing he does, just exiting the screen.
Yeah, because he does it in, I think our one thing that makes us laugh the most is like that awkwardness of it.
Yeah, like it's like absurdly awkward.
Yeah, and I think that's what he started doing in Napoleon Dynamite, and you could see it there. But I feel like you're right. He perfected it with this one because it's so uncomfortably funny because of how awkward it is, but it doesn't last too long, and it's perfect.
Because often in times when you watch, especially like comedy movies, sometimes you'll have like your main characters or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like Blockers that just came up. Blockers, the core group of Blockers and everyone there is very silly. But when you start going outside of that, then people start being more normal. Mm-hmm. Like even the John Cena's wife, she seems normal, right? Compared to everyone else. And this thing, I think the universe is just skewed.
Yeah.
Because it seems like everyone here, like everyone in the universe is just kind of weird.
Yeah, they're just kind of off.
Yeah, and I think it's even funnier because Ben, the main character, is supposed to be the more normal of the group. Yes. Like we're talking about within the first 10 minutes, 7 minutes, something, and she comes back with all the fucking snacks, and she's like, "Can you give me a hand massage?" And he's like, doing it, but then in that little moment, he's like, he knows that this is weird, and he does a thing where
he looks around.
He's like, "What?" Like he could tell he's like, "What the hell?" Like, has anyone seen this?
No one else has seen this.
And it's like that. It's like. Like, yeah, towards the end when he's doing the book signing, and he's like, "Oh, and space camp," and that guy's like,
"Lucky," or whatever. But yeah, you're right. Like, it's the characters themselves. They know how to inhabit this world. It's like, yeah, because in a lot of other things they have to have like the straight man and then the more goofy character, like in like The Hangover or like Bridesmaids, right, where it's like, oh, like Bradley Cooper and Rose Byrne, they're the straight characters, right? They don't get to make, or if they're gonna make a joke, it's to make fun of somebody, right? But then you have like the what's his name, Zach Galifianakis, or what's her name, Melissa McCarthy, where they're there to be like silly and over the top all the time. But like none of these characters are over the top. It's just because they're just like slightly, like they're either really quiet or they're either really like I don't even know how to explain it. Like Lonnie's character, it's just so weird.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's weird because it's not just these people in this town. It's everybody.
Yeah.
Like literally everybody. Like even like remember when the guy is asking him the question and he's like, the human years won't be blah blah blah, but I could give you the lyrics, and he's like, awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's everybody in this Jared Hess universe, this Gentleman Broncos movie verse. Everyone's just kind of off.
Yeah.
And so even though each individual is kind of weird in their own way, it's not weird in the sense of like, yeah, you're right. You're being the Zach Galifianakis. You're being the Ducky of this movie. It's like, no, this is just really Ben is the weird one because he's the most level-headed, more straight person.
Yeah, he just sits there, he's quiet, and he sees like these things happening. He's like, what? And yeah, he's the one who's questioning everything, like literally everything. And every character's like that too. Even like his mom is just kind of like out there too when she brings him for his birthday the cheese car. I didn't even realize in the movie theater she had the ball.
Yeah.
And she's like slamming it like to break it up.
This movie later, it's only like an hour. It's not even an hour and a half. I think it's like an hour 29.
Really,
minutes.
it feels like a long movie
because it makes you laugh all the way through.
Yeah,
like it. That's what I'm saying. It's so crazy. It's just like the movie's so ridiculously funny all the way through. It's not just the jokes. It's not just the characters. It's not just the settings. It's everything coming together. It's the funny things of someone asking a question and just him answering it in a funny way. But it's not because he's trying to be funny. It's because that's really how he is. Like if we were writing this right for a class assignment or something, some people would be like, this is dumb. But it's because it's not just trying to write a joke. It's not trying to be like, oh, here's a, like, yes, the snake shitting itself is hilarious. Her getting shot in the boob's hilarious, but also it's hilarious when he's like, hey, aren't trolls supposed to be named after like nature and stuff? And he's like, I wrote blah 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 trolls. Are you talking about bridge trolls? Are you talking about nature trolls? Are you talking about blah blah blah? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, because like that's how ridiculous these people are, but it's not because they're ridiculous. It's because that's like I don't know. It's so weird because they are ridiculous, but they fit in this world.
Yeah, they fit in though.
It's like it's everything. It's Aeneas. Like
Vaginas.
Like everything in this movie literally from the beginning to the 100% end is so fucking funny. And before we end though, like which is funny about like the idea of these people being like kind of silly and out there but not being, in the movie there's what's the guy's name, the director guy?
Oh, Lonnie
Donahoe. Yeah, so the funniest part about this whole thing is I watched this movie with my mom. It could have been like, I think maybe it was on cable or something and we recorded it or whatever. But because like I said, I watched this a shit ton of times. She watched it with me. She laughed, even though she doesn't like, she says she swears she doesn't like the stuff I like, but whatever. But one of the funniest parts is she was laughing so hard because that character reminded her of someone in real life. There was this Navajo guy who she used to work with, and she's like, I swear to God, he's exactly like that. The way he talks, the way he acts, like everything, how he accentuates things, that's how he is. And I was like, no way. She's like, yeah, I swear, like he used to work with me for a couple of years. And I never got that out of my head because it's like, so does that mean that that person, I'm not saying it was him, maybe it could have been him. Maybe Jared Hess ran into him one day. Maybe he stayed at the hotel and he was working there.
Well, he's from Utah, right? Jared Hess?
Yeah, I think so. And they just happened to run in, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but either way, like something must have happened where he met someone like that. I mean, he met another Navajo guy like that. But like, it just blew my mind that the fact that this movie being so silly has some ties into reality where my mom was like, yeah, that totally reminds me. Like, it wasn't even like, yeah, like that, but like, you know, no, she said straight up, he's exactly like that. And it just always blew my mind. And maybe that's another reason why, like, I say, like, this movie is probably way more than you think it is, because there's just something about this movie that just hits every single time. Like I said, we talked about this for so long. We always talk about it, and you're right. We've been quoting it since the day we saw it because this movie is so fucking funny. It's like unbelievably funny too. Yeah. And I think that one thing that things like this and a Napoleon Dynamite have going for them is they like to place themselves in this weird, skewed, this is the early 90s, but also the late 90s, but also the mid 2000s.
But also like it could be like maybe the 80s too sometimes, because like just some of the things that they wear.
Or this could be an alternate universe where we have 2000s technology in the 1980s.
Maybe.
Because like I like the fact that I think he skewed that, like the fashion with like the technology, because he does have a Bluetooth.
Oh, that's right. He does
all the time.
And then at the end he has a cell phone.
Yeah.
But see, if you took those out of the movie and he was just like on a regular phone, it would fit completely well too.
Yeah.
Like that's what I like, is that like it could be anywhere. And if you told me it was in the mid 90s, I would be like, oh yeah, of course. If you told me it was like in the mid 2000s, I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think one thing that this movie has going for it is that it like does this weird thing where it plays with your vision of like, well, this is a 2000s movie, this is a 90s movie, this is a 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps it stay like in the future of this, where people were watching it like, wow, this movie was like crazy ahead of its time. It's so hilarious. It's like Napoleon Dynamite, but like 10 times better. And it's like, when we're 55, we're like, yeah, fucking no, check out episode 100 of INTB.
Yeah, like, Jesus Christ, like, how long have we been saying? And it's like, oh, and then they're going to be like, okay, what are we, millennials or exennials, or what are we, Gen X?
Yeah, they're going to be like, okay, millennial. God damn it. No, but seriously though, you know, one thing that we learn in life is things come and go. Things change. It can never stay the same. Except for Denver Broncos. Mm-hmm. That's always and forever.
It's always hilarious.
So, obviously, it's 4 thumbs up. Go watch this damn movie. Stream it on torrent site or whatever, or steal it from a Walmart if they doubt they have it at a Walmart. But wherever you can find it, get this goddamn movie, because trust me, if you like comedy, any comedy, this has it for you.
Well, I think we can maybe pat ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves, because this is episode 100. I mean, technically this isn't the 100th episode, but it is our 100. Whatever. It's like how the 300th episode of The Simpsons technically wasn't the 300th episode, but whatever. This is our 100th episode, and for today's segment, we're just going to kind of talk about, it's not that bad, I don't know, behind the scenes stuff, I guess, or whatever. You know, it's going to be more relaxed because this is our 100th episode. And
yeah, we just kind of want to go through and think about from the first episode to now, and, you know, how we view things, how things have changed for us. And, you know, obviously, if you were to go back and listen to the first episode and listen to this episode, you can see that I would say that we're producing content now that's actually good.
Yeah. I think, I want to say it was about, I think it was the episode we did, at least to me, where we did with Solo. I think that was the start of us actually, like, hitting our groove. Because, I mean, we just lost our... Did we have a third person on here? I don't know. It's weird. If you go back and listen to the first couple episodes, it sounds like someone else is talking when we're trying to talk. And I don't know why. I think it was a malfunction with the mic or something. But anyways...
So the reason why... And I think the reason why it still is this way is... From the get-go, we want to do... Everyone does a podcast.
Yeah.
Obviously. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you do a podcast.
Yeah.
There's a good chance you do a movie podcast.
Oh.
But we didn't want to just do a typical movie podcast where we just talk about, well, this movie and that movie and blah, blah, blah. We wanted to do something different because, especially at the time, I would say it's probably at the peak of it, where it was more about, let's talk about what I didn't like about this movie.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why this doesn't work. Let's talk about, I'm going to go through and I'm going to review this movie about, like, all the stuff that I didn't like and what I didn't, what I personally hated about it. I did give it 8 out of 10 stars, but let me just go through what I don't like. And it was this weird idea of, like, why do people hate watching movies? Because we have had conversations. Our whole fucking friendship is based off of, like, us liking the idea of movies existing. And so we've had conversations before where it's like, yeah, I like this movie because of this reason and I'm entertained. Or, I actually like this because, like, it's blah, 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 whatever. And that was one thing that it was like, yeah, okay, like, sure, you don't like that, but that's whatever. That's you. And it was one of those things where we just like movies.
Yeah.
Like, we know that not every movie is going to be the best movie. We know not every movie is going to be like, oh, I loved it. It was the greatest, blah, blah, blah. But people tend to forget that movies are very entertaining. And it's almost a weird concept now where people can watch a movie and be like, I like that movie. Okay, but tell me what you loved about it. Well, I don't know. It was all good. Well, tell me what you hate about it. Oh, there's a couple things, but it's all right. It's almost like just the idea of liking a movie, not loving a movie, not hating a movie, not telling you why you have to love this character or what you hate about the story. Just the idea of you watching a movie and enjoying it seems so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And one thing that almost was like perfect for us was, it was 3 different people with 3 different views.
Yeah.
Like, Junior had a weird, fucked up vision of something, and you had a more regal idea of cinema, and I'm more of a casual, let me just watch something, whatever. And so it was 3 people just coming together and saying, like, why we like this movie. Why you like, what is this movie, Like, what did you like so much about this movie? What did you like about this movie? This is what I liked about the movie. And it's something that I think even though, like, losing Junior and trying to keep, like, a third person did feel, like, weird at first because it was just us talking to each other, we were still able to keep that idea of, like, well, when we watch a movie, you can still see this stuff in a movie that I'm not going to pay attention to. And then I'm going to look at this movie completely different than how you're going to look at this movie.
Yeah.
And even though, like, we feel that way or whatever, blah, 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 we can still come together and be like, yeah, it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we've approached every film. Like, we don't go in automatically, like, hating it. Unless it's like a Bohemian Rhapsody, because, I mean, it's Bohemian Rhapsody.
But that's why we don't review it.
That's why we don't. Yeah, exactly. It's like, we're not going to review something that we automatically are like, we're not going to like that. Or, it's not that we're not going to like it, it's just, we're going to have too many flaws with the film that I think outweigh the positives we could say about it. Because there's, like, a movie like Avatar. Like, the only positives we've ever said about it are the special effects. Like, the effects of that movie, yes, are great. And to a certain extent, some of the direction is great. And, like, some of the cinematography is great. But other than that, like, we can't... I mean, honestly, I wouldn't want to sit here talking about it because I'd be like, well, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Like, why are we going to do that to you guys? Like, you don't want to sit here and hear us complain about a movie, right? We want you to go out and watch these movies. So we're going to talk up these movies. That's why we go see these ones and we talk about the ones that we want you to actually go out and see. Like, yeah, we've done some that after we watched it, we were like, meh. But that's been very rare. Like, I think Mute was one of them, but we still liked it because Paul Rudd's character, and Justin Theroux's character, they made up for the flaws of that movie. Because it could have just been a movie about them, and that movie would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Or, like, what was the other one we did with Alison Brie and Jason Sudeikis?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a better movie than it turned out to be.
But it was just kind of like, eh.
But it was still just a fine movie. Like,
yeah.
We could still talk about how good it was.
And that was one thing, like, that was one thing we always try to do is we try to look at what's good. It's like, well, first of all, you have Alison Brie in a movie. Mm-hmm. That's a positive.
Yeah.
So, but, like, our criticism when it is negative, it's stuff where it's like, well, you have Jason Sudeikis in this movie and he's not as funny as he should be.
Exactly.
And that's like that, but we're saying, like, but that's where we're still, like, the one thing is we're always criticizing these movies, true, but it doesn't mean that we have to put down every single thing like that. It's our criticism is, well, when you have a movie with Jason Sudeikis in it and Alison Brie, you can kind of get away with a lot of stuff comedy-wise, and it just never felt like it hit. It felt like it was a misstep. It felt like someone wrote a script and was like, no, we have to say the script. Yeah. And that's why it was kind of hard watching at times, because it's like, I know that these people are so much better than this movie, but watching it, it's like, okay, but still, it's like a good rom-com, you get the happy ending and whatever, blah, 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 because at the end of the day, it's like, it really is not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it all the time, but my absolute worst movie I've ever seen was How Beer Pong Saved My Life. It was a movie I found on Netflix. It was one of those things where I just wanted to watch a comedy movie, and I think it was like, I want to say like the girl in that movie was in like some weird zombie movie I saw that I kind of like. Really? I could have been mixing them up or something, but either way, like, I remember just thinking like, okay, yeah, I'll put that on. And the reason why I hate that movie is because every single part of that movie was wrong. Like, the jokes didn't land. Like, the story was stupid. Like, it's supposed to be a comedy movie, and I didn't laugh. And that's saying a lot, because I can watch legit kids movies, like actual kids movies meant for little baby kids, and I can still laugh.
Exactly.
And so watching a movie like Beer Pong Saved My Life, and I'm sitting there like, that's fucking stupid. Why would they? What? That's dumb.
And see, that's why I don't understand when, like, people give like the movie we reviewed this week, Gentlemen Broncos. They give it a bad review, but it's like this movie still like it still made us laugh. Like it's a comedy. It made us laugh. It did its job. Like, I don't understand, like, you know what I mean? Like, if a horror film actually is like, oh shit, this is kind of creepy. This is, like, scaring me. It did its job. I think if a movie like that, where it's a specific genre like that, if it does its job well enough, I think that's when you can say, hey, it actually isn't that bad. Like, you guys are just making, like, just because you didn't like this or you didn't like that. Like, a really, like, a good example is, like, Annabelle. That movie is a terrible movie. There's only one like scary part to it, but the rest of the movie itself is like not good. And yeah, see,
it looks good.
It just and see, we would never review it. But you said I haven't seen the sequel, but you said the sequel is actually really good and probably like it does its job, right? It actually gives you those chills, or it terrifies you, or it scares you well enough. Like the Babadook. I think that movie does a really good job of like creating that sense of like, you know, like when you're like a little kid and you hear a noise and you're just like in bed, like, what is that? And your mind just imagines all these things. And I think that's why that does its job really well. I think that's why we go out of our way to review certain films and we don't other ones. It's because, well, we could always review Annabelle. But all we would be doing here is talking about, oh, well, they could have done this better. They could have done this. They could have done that. This. But do you want to hear us complain?
And by no means are we saying that the YouTube channels and other podcasts that do it are wrong, but we're just saying that there's a majority of them that don't do it in the way that they should. Especially for us, or at least for me, like, as much as I wish I could go onto YouTube and watch all these people review stuff, I literally can't, because it gets irritating hearing someone try to explain something. It's like, that's not right. Like, you're just making shit up now.
Yeah.
The way you're explaining it, you're saying that, and you're saying it's fact, and you're telling that, but you're saying it all wrong. It's so weird that like now it's only a couple. Like there's only a couple places I'll go.
Yeah, me too.
You know, like I'll wait for Found Flicks to make something and be like, because this guy knows what he's gonna talk about.
Yeah, when they explain the ending explained or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the one guy that I told you, Dead Meat or whatever, he was on that React.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch his because all he does is he goes through like the movie's kills, and like so it's like, but he also kind of reviews it a little bit, but like he doesn't just sit there and like, well how come this character didn't do that? Well, that was a plot hole. It's like that's not a plot hole.
But the worst part, and the thing is, the reason why we say that is because we realize that people are being hypocritical, because they would say stuff like that, and then they'd also say this X movie is their favorite movie, and it's like, you mean the movie that actually has a plot hole in it?
Yeah.
But you're criticizing this movie for not having a plot hole?
That movie is a classic because
and that's where we were bred.
Yeah.
We didn't like that. We didn't like the idea of people just, well, I reviewed this movie and I'm going to tell you how it is. And it's like, okay, but you telling me how it is isn't telling me about the movie. It's just telling me how you sat there and, oh my God, it was 3 hours long. It's like, who fucking cares? Like, move on.
Sit there and watch
then just move on. And keep, so having to sit there, and it's like, I don't want to hear about you sitting there. Just tell me about the movie. And it's like, like, I'm not going to talk about the beginning because the beginning's fine. It's the end. It's like, no, tell me about the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's where it was getting irritating. It was because these people weren't reviewing movies. They were reviewing their experiences. Yeah, sometimes, like, obviously we talk about experiences like we did on this episode, but it's also the movie. It's like why we love the movie, what's to like about the movie. If it's a movie that we don't love, what is there to look forward to? If Dom can't get with this movie, it's like, but let me tell you why I think this movie is good. Or if I'm not understanding why this is essential to the movie, it's Dom explaining, like, but when you look at the grand, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still us having those conversations, but it's trying to paint it in a positive light, because sometimes people will say, well, Joe Dirt's a stupid movie. And it's like, yeah, it is stupid. It's very fucking stupid.
Yeah, but it's
guess
hilarious.
What? Yeah, it's fucking hilarious.
And see, it does its job. It's a comedy that's supposed to be stupid, and that's why it works. Is because it didn't try to be something different. It knew what it was trying to be, and it did it. Like with the segments, we always try and bring you something like where it's like, this is something we've found within this community that it's like we need to call them out on that because
we're a call out culture.
Yeah,
we need to cancel.
We need to cancel it. No, but it's because they do it to be they do it, but they're hypocritical about it, and that's one thing that we try to avoid being here as hypocrites about things. There's obviously something that we've said where, I mean, I'm not going to go through everything and be like, oh yeah, I guess I was hypocritical about that.
And like that's one thing too, is like doing this stuff. We're still changing. Like we're still, we're getting better at not only watching movies, but trying to really encapsulate what the movie is. Because when we left school, like that was one thing, is like we did start to view movies a lot where it's like, oh well, that tracking shot is still very shaky. I don't know why. Like, why they just do handheld? That's so dumb. Like, it was hard to kind of get away from that,
especially in that environment of like film school, because they love doing that.
Yeah.
They love being like, oh, well, I can't watch this film because it wasn't nominated at the Palme d'Or, and it's like, do you even know what that is? I know it's a prestigious award.
Someone said it before.
Yeah, it's like people say things, but they don't know what they are talking about.
Yeah, and that was one thing too, is we try to move away from that, where we still talk about how we love cinematography, or we love the score, or we love the way something's written or whatever, directed. Obviously, because that leads to why we like the movies, but also just trying to not only break down the movie in that sense, right, where it's like, oh man, the cinematography, this is great, and blah blah blah, but also like what the movie meant, what the movie was supposed to do. Was it supposed to be some slapstick comedy? Is that what we got? Cool, you know what I mean? And that's something where like now, I think trying to put ourselves more in that mindset is making us enjoy movies just and TV shows too, all around, just a little bit more. It's me being able to watch Holmes and Watson and know that it's a bad movie, but I like Will Ferrell, I like John C. Reilly. I'm gonna watch it, and like I know that it's not great, and I know I'm not laughing, but I still watch it and be like, okay, I like that part. That's actually pretty funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, I know what you
instead of oh, I walked out of that movie, and let me tell you why. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's a movie. Like, of course, what do you want it to be? Period accurate? Like, go watch a period piece.
I know.
And then also, it's not just that too. It's like more dramas now. I can sit there and I can be like, let me see if I can actually sit and watch this, because before all I liked was comedy. I wasn't much of an action guy, I didn't care much for a lot of dramas. Every once in a while something would slip through, because it's like, no, that's not a drama, that's a sci-fi movie. No, it's a dramatic sci-fi movie.
Oh,
wait, you're saying that there's emotions in this movie? No, but like doing this, I think even more, trying to sit down and watch even movies we don't review, like I watched Stan and Ollie twice already because it was just an enjoyable movie.
Was that good? I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, and so like that's the cool thing about this too, is just always trying to look at the positive, trying to look at like what's good about this movie, trying to look at like, oh, you know what, now I actually see like, John C. Reilly in this movie compared to John C. Reilly in that movie, like, yeah, actually it's pretty good when you know what I mean? Like, that's what this podcast is doing, not only to us, but hopefully to people who listen. And even if people don't listen, like it's just for us, it's helping, like, hey, we're actually getting together, we're doing something somewhat productive, and we're trying to be like, hey, let's not lose our love for movies. Let's not be like, oh well, I actually worked in Hollywood for like 2 months, so let me say why I don't like this movie anymore.
And,
or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just those people who are just so. I feel like they think that they have a higher say because like either they work on it or they work with it. And
well, I'm a writer, so I know what good dialogue is.
It's like, yeah, but like, why can't you just why can't you just sit down and watch a movie and be like, let me just watch the movie? Like, I never understood that, like, because like that's what they teach you in film schools. You have to watch movies twice because you have to be a filmmaker watching it, and then you have to be as a regular audience member watching it. It's like, why can't you sit there and notice like the great lighting that they're doing or the great shot that they're doing, but at the same time you're still engaged with the story? Like,
it's one thing that I think doing this really taught us is like, there's some weird stigma about like these dramas and these like we talk about the like Oscar bait movies and all this stuff where people will go into certain movies and they'll watch them and be like, oh, of course. But it's like, are you enjoying it? Like how, like we said, like how we went to the lighthouse and we were laughing our ass off.
Yeah.
And no one else was. And it's like, are you guys not enjoying this movie? This movie's so awesome.
I'm sitting here watching it. Of course I'm watching it.
It's like, then why aren't you laughing? This is hilarious.
Yeah, I know. Like there's multiple times in movies when that happens where it's like
3 billboards.
Yeah, where these parts are meant to be funny. Like you're supposed to laugh. Like you're right. In 3 billboards, like there are so many funny parts in that movie. Like, but they're meant to be funny. It's not like we're laughing at like a random part that just is like, oh, she died, ha 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 ha. No, like what was it?
Oh, she was like, yeah, well, I hope you get raped on your way home. And it's like, it's so fucked up.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too, is like, that's why I think like before we close out is like, this is what this podcast is able to do. It's able for us to like break down those barriers and just watch a movie and enjoy it. But I don't know. It's just like 100 episodes may not be that much right now. Or maybe 100 episodes is a lot. I don't know, because sometimes people fade in and out and stuff like that. But the one thing that is really cool about this, whether you like us or you don't, maybe you hate listening to us, that's cool too. But it's the fact that it still gets us together to watch a movie and talk about it. Because guess what, guys? When we don't have mics in front of us, we get together.
We
talk about movies. Like, there's no difference. The only difference is us being able to take a movie like Gentlemen Broncos, a movie that we saw. I probably watched it around 3 to 4 dozen times by now. No joke. But a movie I've seen so many times. But now we can sit and we can be like, let me tell you why this is hilarious. Look at this guy. Look at this character. Look at this. Look at the ambiance of the film. Look at how he wrote. Look at how he went from Napoleon Dynamite to this and how it's so much, you know what I mean? Like, we can actually sit and talk about something like this. Or we can, take our idea of like what we thought a Joker movie could be, and then watch the Joker movie and be like, oh, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of different things I think make us like a better viewer, I guess.
Yeah.
Or just like a consumer.
Yeah, I think that's how you should take us as. We're equal parts consumer and critic, because, like we said, we'll be critical of a film if it needs to be, but we'll also sit there and tell you why. And we like to see both the art and the entertainment. Like, we've argued that before, whether or not film is. It's both. We sat here and told you it's both.
We don't want to be the guy who, let me talk about why I hate The Last Jedi, and then is sitting here reviewing The Mandalorian and be like, oh, this is why I love it. And it's like, but that's the same fucking thing. What are you talking about? Yeah, so 100 episodes, super sick.
Woo!
Thank you for listening. If you're listening, if you listen to old episodes, if you're listening to it just now.
Yeah, thank you.
Like,
guys.
honestly, thank you so much. We
Yes.
honestly appreciate it.
So this is to the next 100.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully. The next 300? Oh, we make the next 300. Not 300 episodes, but the next 300.
So 400?
It just goes up 100 each movie.
No, but seriously, thank you so much. It's amazing, especially like the timing of this podcast is so weird because we could have done something like this earlier. And honestly, I didn't even really want to do a podcast. I legit didn't really want to do it.
Exactly. I was the one who was like, let's do a podcast. And then
now,
you're like, no.
Yeah, now we sit here, record and edit. So who knows? But yeah, honestly, thank you so much. Like I said, we're always trying to better ourselves, to keep pushing ourselves. You know, we're not trying to bank on like, oh, well, we're popular. Oh, look at how many people like us. Like, all we care about is just kind of having these conversations.
Yeah.
And it's cool when people kind of want to have the same conversations or
just
they
wish-
want to die hard tell us what we're wrong about.
Yeah, I just wish people would just be like, huh, you know what? You're kind of right.
Yeah. Because we know, like, we even say, like, sometimes how, where it's like, I know, blah, 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 but, like, here's why we're okay with it.
Yeah.
Because that's how, you know, there's some things that we learn or some things that we view completely different from you. And this is why we like it. Instead of just telling you, like, no, you're stupid, even though sometimes we do say you're stupid. Instead of just always trying to say that, instead of being that fucking internet guy who's like, yeah, I watched this movie. It was pretty perfect. But let me tell you why I didn't like this. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, you just can't be positive for once? Oh, this movie's amazing cast, amazing crew. Oh, they shot it like super cheap, but it looks so amazing, blah, blah, blah. But let me tell you why I hated this. And it's like, what? Like, none of that, whatever. Thank you for being on this quest, and we're going to keep going from here. And we still might, we tried things in the past. We're still going to try things in the future.
Yes.
We might change things up now. Like, who knows? But really, if you guys just want to stay on our course of wherever we're headed, be sure to follow our Instagram, our Twitter at INTB_podcast. I've been falling behind on Twitter sometimes. It's just sometimes it's hard to just post because I'm not a very social media guy, but I do like social media. I don't know how that works out.
I try and keep it up too, but like sometimes you're just like,
if you want to message me and have a conversation, I'll do it.
Yeah. If you want to, direct DM us and let us know like, why did you like Gentlemen Broncos? Why did you hate Gentlemen Broncos?
What the hell is Gentlemen Broncos?
Yeah, or you guys hate us that we've already been at 100 and we're not popular enough, or we're too popular, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or you can do that at our email at intbpodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to follow us on anything you listen to us on, so you get the episode right away. I try to do it. I try to get it out every Friday, but sometimes I legit forget. So if you follow us, as soon as it comes out, you'll get it.
Yeah, it's usually from between Friday to Monday.
And anywhere in between. And yeah, like I said, like the idea of us going and pushing on and going further, we are gonna try to get onto Spotify. Spotify is becoming bigger and bigger with stuff like that.
And to another peek behind the curtain is we were trying to do YouTube stuff too, but it was getting kind of hard. Hopefully now we're gonna get to the point too where we can do YouTube as well. We've been trying to expand different ways. Something might be coming along in the next year that is completely different than this, but
yeah, we're gonna sit and talk about TV shows that we saw. And probably not really that bad. So if
TV.
you want to,
It's not that bad.
If you want to be on that journey, make sure you follow us. Like I said, we're gonna try to get onto. We're gonna try to put our shit on YouTube, and Spotify, and so we can try to just, like I said, keep expanding, keep pushing, try not to just stay still for too long.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? I mean, I could die tomorrow and the podcast ends, or Tom could die tomorrow, and I'll keep going. But until then, guys, to our 101 episode, remember,
it's not that bad.
It's not that